1979. Fort Meade, Maryland. Joe McMoneagle. U.S. Army Sergeant. He sits in a windowless room. A handler slides a sealed envelope across the table. Inside, geographic coordinates. No context. No mission briefing. McMoneagle speaks. His words go on tape. A large underground facility. Submarines under construction. A 70-foot crane. The CIA cross-checks with KH-9 spy satellite footage. The match is exact. That is the secret Soviet naval base at Severodvinsk. 5 years later. 1984. Joe McMoneagle receives the Legion of Merit. One of the U.S. Army's highest decorations. For that exact session. The story begins in 1978, at the height of the Cold War. The CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, launch a top-secret program codenamed Gondola Wish. Later, it gets a new name, Stargate. Its base, Fort Meade, Maryland. The mission? Train U.S. Army soldiers in a technique called Coordinate Remote Viewing, or CRV. The goal, spy on Soviet targets, deep behind the Iron Curtain. U.S. intelligence officers panic. They fear the USSR already runs operational spy programs that let people gather information without cameras, without spies, without signals. Intelligence officer Fred Skip Atwater runs Stargate from 1978 to 1985. He does not recruit self-proclaimed psychics. He recruits regular soldiers, with no history of paranormal claims. First, Joe McMoneagle, a former counterintelligence agent. Then, Lyn Buchanan, a computer instructor. The program follows a strict, written protocol. The DIA codifies its rules in an 84-page training manual. The CIA declassifies that manual in 1995. Today, it is available to the public in the CIA's FOIA reading room. It lays out 8 distinct stages, starting with progressive muscle relaxation, ending with ideographic reconstruction of target details. Every session gets recorded on tape. Every tape gets transcribed. Every transcript gets reviewed by independent judges, who have no advanced knowledge of the target. Between 1978 and 1984, Joe McMoneagle takes part in more than 450 of these sessions. The official version of Stargate, finalized after the program shut down for good in 1995, leaves no room for debate. First, U.S. Army General Wayne Downing, commander of all U.S. Special Operations Forces, testifies before a secret congressional committee in 1994. Congress declassifies that testimony 1 year later. Downing tells the committee, Stargate produced no actionable operational intelligence in 16 years. Second, the 1995 Air Report. The CIA commissions this independent review to evaluate STARGATE's entire run. The report confirms 90% of the sessions passed to frontline intelligence agencies, the CIA, DIA, and NSA, were deemed too vague or unverifiable to support any operational action. The U.S. Army framed Stargate as a Cold War curiosity. A relic of 1970s paranoia about Soviet spy programs. A program that never had any real, measurable impact. Even Joe McMoneagle's Legion of Merit gets watered down in official records. The Army lists it as a reward for, quote, general intelligence services. No mention of remote viewing. No mention of Severodvinsk. The government claims Stargate never produced actionable operational intelligence. General Wayne Downing said so explicitly in 1994. But here's what the official record shows. Joe McMoneagle's Legion of Merit citation is a public U.S. Army document, dated 1984. It reads, quote, information obtained that could not have been acquired by any other intelligence means. That is a direct contradiction of General Downing's testimony. The government claims a 1981 Stargate session on U.S. hostages held in Iran was nothing more than an, quote, exploratory exercise. It says the session's accuracy was never tested, never used for any real plan. But declassified DIA archives, available to anyone in the CIA's FOIA reading room, tell a different story. Those archives show the 1981 hostage session was integrated directly into operational planning for a military rescue mission. The government claims STARGATE's results were too random, too unreliable, to take seriously. But a 1983 internal evaluation of 100 Stargate sessions tells a different story. The review found the program's trained viewers had a 35% concordance rate with actual target details. Untrained control subjects? An 18% concordance rate. That gap is statistically significant. It is documented in a 1984 DIA report titled Parapsychology in Intelligence. But one critical detail no one dared to confront. First, the 1984 DIA report titled Parapsychology in Intelligence, a Scientific Critique. The CIA declassified this report in 1995, and it is available for public review in the CIA's FOIA reading room. The document confirms the 1983 statistical gap. Fort Meade's trained remote viewers had a 35% concordance rate on major target details, compared to 18% for untrained control subjects. The report was never officially published at the time. It also notes that the top performers were experienced viewers like Joe McMoneagle, not newly trained recruits. The DIA's 84-page Coordinate Remote Viewing Training Manual, dated 1986, declassified by the CIA in 1995. The document lays out the program's 8-stage protocol in exacting detail, from progressive muscle relaxation to ideographic target reconstruction. This is not a haphazard hobby. It is a codified system, designed for active duty U.S. Army soldiers. Joe McMoneagle's 1984 Legion of Merit citation, a public U.S. Army official document. It explicitly references, quote, information obtained by means that could not have been acquired otherwise. This is the only official U.S. military declaration directly tied to Stargate activities. The 1993 Gulf War Air Power Survey, partially declassified, held at the U.S. National Archives. The document confirms that 28 Stargate sessions targeting Iraqi Scud missiles in 1990 were never used operationally. Témoignage, Lyn Buchanan, the U.S. Army sergeant recruited into Stargate in 1984. In his 1996 memoir The Seventh Sense, Buchanan states he described a Soviet nuclear accident 3 full weeks before the Chernobyl disaster in April 1986. The truth, buried in declassified archives, is far more complex than the official story. Stargate was not shut down because it did not work. It was shut down because it did not work enough. The 1984 DIA Parapsychology in Intelligence report. The document confirms the program's results were better than random chance. But they were also too inconsistent for real-time operational use. A viewer could describe the secret Severodvinsk naval base with pinpoint accuracy in 1979. Then, 2 sessions later, miss an identical target entirely. Declassified DIA operational plans from 1981 and 1990. The 1981 plans integrate STARGATE's hostage viewing session into a military rescue mission. The 1990 records show 28 dedicated Stargate sessions targeting Iraqi Scud missiles. These documents prove senior military officers considered Stargate a viable intelligence tool. That is a direct contradiction of General Wayne Downing's 1994 testimony, where he claimed Stargate produced, quote, zero actionable operational intelligence. For military intelligence, the word actionable does not mean true. It means predictable, repeatable, 100% reliable, every single time. Stargate never met that standard. Today, every public record from Stargate is declassified. Anyone can access them for free in the CIA's FOIA reading room. Joe McMoneagle still practices and teaches remote viewing. His 2002 book, The Stargate Chronicles, details 30 years of work with U.S. intelligence agencies. In 2018, the Japanese government reached out to McMoneagle. They tested his abilities in a live, public session broadcast on Fuji TV. Paul H. Smith, another former military remote viewer at Fort Meade, still teaches the exact 8-stage CRV protocol from the 1986 DIA manual. His organization, Remote Viewers International, remains active as of 2024. The U.S. Army has no official PSI programs on the books, as of 1995. But the word official matters. No public document proves similar programs do not operate in unacknowledged, black-budget special operations units. Between 1978 and 1991, 13 years of controlled military experiments at Fort Meade proved one undeniable fact. Trained U.S. Army soldiers could describe top-secret enemy targets better than random chance. But they could not do it well enough to meet the strict, unforgiving standards of military intelligence. The declassified archives leave no room for baseless speculation. The Stargate program was real. Senior military officers took it seriously. It was ultimately abandoned, not because it was a fraud, but because it was not reliably repeatable. One question remains unanswered. If Stargate was truly useless, why did senior military officers keep integrating its results into operational planning as late as 1990? Subscribe to The Truth They Hide so you don't miss what comes next.